Hello everyone, this video will cover Module 5. Module 5 is probably the module with the most assignments in it. It will probably take you the longest. I don't know that it's necessarily the hardest module, but there's a lot in this module, so you want to get started on it early. You do also have that extra week because we do have a break in the middle of the semester for the 4th of July week. And just so you know, it's kind of two parts here. We've got a section on comparison contrast because we're starting the next essay, and then we've got a section on documentation and source usage. So the comparison essay will probably be the hardest essay for you just because there is a requirement to use sources in it, which is something we haven't done yet. And so for those of you who are familiar with source usage, it won't be that hard. But for those of you who haven't, or maybe it's been a while, that will be the challenge for you. So you've got two sets of readings here, one on comparison contrast and one on documentation. The comparison contrast readings are out of the patterns book. We do have a whole chapter on comparison and contrast, and so you want to make sure you go through that. The main thing that you want to remember is that there are two ways to structure a comparison essay, and that is using subject by subject or point by point. We are using point by point comparison. That's a requirement for the essay, and so that page will be really helpful for you as you're going through and navigating everything. So you want to make sure you do that reading, and then there's a whole bunch of stuff about documentation. This is probably the most complicated thing that you'll do in any writing class in college, is really just understanding how to approach source usage appropriately. And so there's a lot of readings to do. Some of it may be familiar to you, some of it may not. I've got a section on like how to find sources, how to avoid plagiarism. And then I've got some really good videos here that I think are very helpful, especially if you have only ever used like APA style. We are using MLA in this class, and that's a big mistake that a lot of students make, is they don't switch up their style. You have to use MLA for this class. That's what we're using. That's the requirement. And so you want to make sure that you're really familiar with it. So the quiz goes over both. There's 20 questions. There's 10 about each. So 10 about comparison, 10 about documentation. And you can take it more than once if you want to. And then you get into the essay assignment itself. So this essay is, we're using that comparison style of writing, so we're using a different pattern. Your task is to pick two subjects to compare. Depending on what subjects you pick, you may be relying more on information that you find from sources or more on information that you are familiar with because you've chosen topics that you are already familiar with. So you can use personal experience if you want to, or you can just do some research depending on how you feel about your topics or what your interest level is. So let's say you want to compare I don't know, Norse gods and Greek gods or something. You probably don't have a lot of personal experience with that, in which case you're going to be relying a lot on what you find out of sources, but there are a lot of very comprehensive sources out there about those topics, so you may only need 2 or 3 total sources, and you're going to be able to find all the information that you need from them. But then again, you may decide you want to compare 2 hobbies, 2 of your hobbies or 2 of the sports that you've played, and then you'll be relying a lot more on personal experience. So let's say you've played both football and soccer or something, now, or American football and European football. You can do that comparison that way. So it's up to you what you choose. The only thing I would caution you about is not choosing a topic where you feel like you have a lot of bias toward it. So if you want to compare Christianity to another religion, that's fine. But if you feel like I don't know, Christianity is the correct religion or whatever, then that may not be the way to go about this essay, because you don't want to be showing bias. So we're not arguing that one is better than the other. There's no argument here. It's a neutral discussion. So your thesis is neutral. You want to make sure that you are not including I in the thesis. We're not saying that something is correct for you or something like that, because that would be a comparison. Instead, we are just putting putting the two next to each other to see what can we understand more deeply because of this comparison. So you can use just third person or first person pronouns, and then the requirement is to do that point by point organization right here, which the textbook talks about. You will end up using at least one direct quote and one paraphrase from at least two sources. So that is the increase in difficulty level for this essay. So I've got a bunch of ideas for topics. I've got a document that other students have used. I've got a website you can go to, lots of different places that you can look. And then these are just some questions to get you started. These are all a little bit more personal, unless you're picking something like, what are two things that you are really interested in? And you know, you may not have, like I said, personal experience with it, but you are just interested in the topics. So that would allow you to do a little bit more research and find out more about them. So again, you're going to come up with a list of at least 10 ideas. So make a list first, and then your second brainstorm will be the free write, to set your timer for 10 minutes and do the continual writing. Make sure you have leave your errors in there, that kind of thing. Then we'll do the next step, which is to put the outline together. And I've got an example here. I've got a document that shows you what thesis statements ought to look like. And then I've got a sample comparison outline as well. I've got, my example is, I believe, Republicans and Democrats. And so this is my version of my thesis, or my outline, and then I had Perplexity create one for me, and then I just highlighted, what are some things that I think might work as far as wording is concerned, or things that I want to look at. So again, if you're using the AI option, you have to label it. Some of you are not doing that. You're losing points. It's not just a free use of AI. You have to be very clear about when you use AI and when you not. So just keep that in mind. And then once you're done with that, you do have to do the draft in this unit. So in this module, that's why there's so much stuff in here. You're doing your draft just like you've done before. You're going to, sit down and type out as much stuff as you can. Try to get your source usage in there, that kind of thing. Don't stop to correct things. I want to see, your original writing. And then you're going to get into the source usage part of the module. So that's like, there's two halves. It's working on all the comparison stuff, and then getting into how does documentation work. So these are review information. Some of it's the same readings as before that you did for the quiz, so you don't have to do them again. But I do have some additional links here just to help you out. If you are still lost, you may want to go there. And then you're going to be doing two assignments. The first one's a documentation assignment, and this is just asking you to find two sources about your topic and then create a document that just has the citation and then a sentence that's a paraphrase and a sentence that's a quote, so that I can show. So I've got these two these two sources. I've got them in here in MLA style, and then I've written out two sentences for each one. One of them is a paraphrase. It's in my own words, and I've just got that citation at the end of the sentence like that. And then one of them is a direct quotation that I put a signal phrase in front of. So we call it a signal phrase or attributive tag that just gives us the information that matches the first part of the works cited entry. So you can see that I've got the first part of these two works cited entries are very clearly a part of the sentence. And so it's either in parentheses or it's in the sentence itself. That's what the matching part is. So we have to make that direct connection. And that's what I'm looking for when you do this assignment. You can just follow my example exactly. That's what I want it to look like. So that is one assignment. It shouldn't take you too long, but for those of you who haven't used sources before, that's going to be a little bit more complicated. And then I've got some more information on how to find academic sources. And then I have this last assignment, which is a discussion board. So for the discussion board, there are really two parts to it. The first part is just to find some sources and post some threads about them. So if I'm going to use like the GOP website, as one of my sources, then I'm just going to, copy and paste the URL. I'm going to go in here, I'm going to hit reply, and then I'm going to say, House Republican website, and then I'm going to put the link in there. If I have, it doesn't have an author, but if it did, then I would put the author in there, maybe a date or something like that, and then I'm just going to hit reply. That's all I need to do at first, because I'm giving, and there needs to be a link there because I want students, my fellow students, my peers, to be able to find the sources. So I'm going to do that for 3 sources, and then once you see people are starting to post sources, then you can go in and do the responses. The responses you can only have 1 response per source. So make sure that you are doing one that's not, somebody else has not done. And the response is going to follow this list, which is under evaluating sources in your patterns book. It's looking at the 5 major criteria: authority, accuracy, objectivity, currency, and comprehensiveness. And so you're just going to go through, and it's on the directions here, these 5 categories. So you're going to just go through in your response, and you're going to leave, a couple of sentences explaining how authoritative it is. So it's the GOP website. So this is the Republican, the party's view of themselves. So you could say that it's biased, but it does have an authority. But they're an authority of their own self, I guess. So once you're done with those 5 categories, then you'll hit reply. Now, if you go to this discussion board and there are no sources without replies, then just send me an email and I will add some sources for you to respond to. So it's not really that big of a deal because we can add a bunch of sources if we need to. In fact, I'm going to delete my response here, and you can just well, actually, I'm going to leave an example for you. Then I'll post a couple more, and you guys can respond to mine. So if you have any questions, feel free to send me an email. Otherwise, it is a lot of work for this unit, but hopefully you'll keep yourself on track. And then if you get lost or confused, just let me know. Have a good week.